And coming up on this episode of the MartyMariner Show, well, it's our final show for 2023. What an absolute cracker of a year it has been to be a Central Coast Mariners fan. And, well, we can't end on just the normal little old show, can we? What an episode we have put together for you to help you get pumped for New Year's Eve. Both teams, doubleheader, Industree Group Stadium, fireworks by DMC Conveyor Services. It's the biggest night on the Central Coast and a doubleheader. How good is that? I can't wait. Absolutely pumped for it. Hopefully we will see all of you there. Let's break a few records when it comes to the crowd. Let's get 6 points in the bag, Central Coast. How good would that be going into the new year? So who are we going to put on our episode? Well, let's start with one of our enforcers of our men's team. Max Balard is joining us for a bit of a chat, bit of a chinwag, bit of a conversation. Max has been really the mainstay in the middle of the park of late, and especially seeing now Nizzy pushing up a little bit further forward. Max has really been holding that middle of the park together, so it'd be good to catch up with him. And joining us for that chat, Dan McCamley from Coast FM 963. He's part of the A team, the best football coverage you will ever see, the best in the business. Make sure you tune into them if you're never at a Mariners game, or even if you are, get them in your ears. They are fantastic. He's going to join us for that chat as well. Can't wait to bring that one to you. Speaking of enforcers in the middle of the park, Bianca Galic does exactly the same thing for our women's team. She's been an absolute powerhouse for the women in the season so far. And I'm sure she will only get better, coming off a massive injury last year. And to think that she is getting stronger and better every single game is a scary thing for all of the opposition. And joining us for that chat, well, I'm one of the people who would believe that if this young lady wasn't around, we wouldn't have a women's team, because back in the day, she was very much an advocate, one of those putting the word out there, getting things moving to get a women's team together. She is now the voice of who you will hear when you're at the women's game at Industree Group Stadium as an MC, a ground announcer. She's an absolute legend. The dulcet tones flow across Industree Group Stadium and out to Brisbane Water when you hear Carly doing her thing. And Carly is going to join us for this chat as well. Look forward to catching up with Carly and, of course, Bianca. We can't leave it there, though. We can't just leave it halfway. We've got to have a panel show, right? We've got to get some panels together. And what a panel we've got for you. Michelle Morris just travelled the world following football left, right and centre. Now, she is an Arsenal supporter. She does follow Sydney FC. We can't have everything, guys, but this young lady is absolutely one of the most passionate football people I know. And if I wanted to have someone to have a discussion with when it comes to men and women's football in both of our leagues about what needs to happen, what she thinks, and some memorable moments that she must have, Michelle is it. She joins us on the panel. And Cody Ojeda from the football Front Page Football podcast. Cody's an absolute legend. Again, is someone who is so passionate about the women's game, about the men's game. And I can't wait to catch up with both of them to have a bit of a chat, bit of a chinwag, bit of a conversation to see what their predictions are, maybe their memorable moments, and maybe some spoilers thrown in there as well. Can't wait to catch up with them. And don't forget to, if you haven't done so already, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. It is free to do so, and who doesn't like free things when it comes to, especially to this time of year? It helps build our numbers. It does things to algorithms that let other people know that there is a podcast, a YouTube channel out there for the Central Coast Mariners, amongst many that we have here on the Central Coast. We're really fortunate with a different diversity of different people doing different things, all bringing some love to the Central Coast Mariners, which is great to see. Subscribe to the channel, again, free to do so. If you prefer to listen, we are on the Apple Podcast, we are on Spotify, we are on a number of different channels, iHeartRadio as well. Whatever you need to do to follow on there, whether it's a follow button or a plus button or a like button, they're all different. Do whatever you can to show your support. Again, free to do so. Helps us spread the word across the world that we have a Central Coast Mariners team here. And they are worth having a listen or a watch too. Well, I think that's the intro sorted. Better get on with the rest of the show, otherwise we will be here all night. Looking forward to bringing all of this to you. Stick around till the end. We'll catch up with you then. Up until then, it's the MartyMariner Show. welcome back to the MartyMariner Show. And as I said in the introduction, well, you're going to see the thorn between a couple of roses right now in front of you, unless, of course, you're listening on a podcast. You're going to have to take my word for it. But let me introduce them to you. First of all, well, she is the MC. She is the GA. We call that ground announcer, and a ground announcer in the the official biz. She is the princess of the palm tree. She is the baroness of the Brisbane Water. God, how good was that last one? I made that up this morning. I'm so proud of myself. Carly, good to see you back on the MartyMariner Show, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, really well. Princess of the Palm Trees. I like that one. I could get used to that.
It'll be, I expect to hear that now at every single women's game. You need to be introduced as that every single time, because
I'll make sure I slide that in, especially on New Year's Eve.
I can't wait to hear that. I'll be there to listen to it. Bianca Galic, how are you doing, mate? Welcome to the MartyMariner Show.
Thanks, Marty. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. And it's been a busy old week, I'm sure, for you guys getting back on the training park and getting back into training and prepping for New Year's Eve. We'll talk about that in a sec. But first of all, can you tell us what your first footballing memory was?
Oh, first footballing memory. I feel like the one that comes to mind, I don't even know how old I made it. Maybe 9 or 10.
Right.
I made this dashing run and I was calling for the ball. I was playing with the boys. Maybe, under nines. I was still playing with boys, and I made a dashing run straight down, and I was looking at the winger going, hit me. And he whipped it, and I just remember I flew through the air and just headed it, and I was like, this has got to be the best goal ever. And still to this day, I still want to score another goal like that, but that's probably the earliest one I can remember.
And we that's a great memory too. We will definitely talk about goal scoring maybe a little bit later in interviewing, because I'd love to see one on New Year's Eve of those as well. And so of course, so early on it was playing with the boys. What age group did you have to play up to before you could actually play in a women's team?
Yeah, I think it was about maybe 11 or 12 is when around that age, the boys obviously start filling out a bit and they don't take it easy on the girls anymore. So around 11 or 12, I moved in with a girls team. And then I think at about 14, I started with Sydney Uni, and then I've pretty much been there ever since.
And you've had a while to settle into the team with the Mariners. Obviously the season's kicked off nicely, especially fantastic win against Canberra. How have you found it so far?
Yeah, honestly, I've really enjoyed it. I think from coaching staff to the other players that I'm working with to, the staff on the ground and then the crowd that we have on game day, I've enjoyed every bit of it. I think every group within that union makes the dream work, and it's not just us on the field that are getting results, it's everyone being behind us and doing those little 1%ers that make a difference. So I've loved being here. I've loved working with the girls. There's definitely a couple that I've gotten on really well with, and others that we're still trying to form those connections on and off the park, but it's been a really nice group to work with, and I think we can only keep getting better.
Absolutely. And Carly just alluded to it there, just the visit down to Canberra. Of course, Canberra was one of your first clubs. How did it all roll around? You ended up starting off with Canberra.
Yeah. So Vicky Linton was the head coach at the time, and she had come up to watch a couple of the Sydney games when I was with Sydney University. And she reached out to me after she had watched a couple games wanting to sign me in Canberra. And at first I was like, obviously you want to be in and around family, but at the end of the day, if you are going for a dream, then you gotta just take your opportunities. So I moved to Canberra for maybe 6 or 7 months, and I really enjoyed that season. Actually, we ended up coming 4th and making semi-finals, which was awesome. But again, for a debut season to go that well, that was just awesome for me. And then obviously I wanted to come back home. I was also studying at the time, so I was trying to juggle both. I was actually driving back to Sydney to complete my studies on certain days. So that after that season, I decided to come back to Sydney and have a season with Western Sydney just to be around family and then also make it a little bit easier to finish off my studies.
And so this isn't the first time you've worked with Emily Husband. So she was an assistant coach at one of your former clubs. How was it, I guess, getting to reunite with her and, now she's the head coach? Sort of, I guess, how has that relationship grown?
Yeah, I think so. I've worked with Emily quite a couple times, actually. She was at Sydney Uni when I was about 16, 17, and then at Canberra United as the assistant coach, and then back at Sydney Uni as well as the head coach there. So we've definitely built a connection over the years, and I think seeing her in this new role as head coach of A-League is something completely different for her, and she's learning and growing as the weeks go by as well. But I think she's finding her feet in terms of how she wants the squad to play out, how she wants the culture to be built on. And I think personally we get on really well, so it makes it easier to perform as a footballer if you can understand your coach's point of view, tactical, but also anything else relating to the game. So it's been really nice reuniting with her there, and then also having a couple of former other Sydney Uni girls there as well who sort of know your game and then you know yours as well.
No, absolutely. And I mean, you mentioned too, being at Canberra, like being a new team and stuff like that. Was there anything that you learned from that year establishing that team that you've carried into with the Mariners being, again, a new squad coming together? Was there anything that you kind of brought with you?
I think the first thing is just patience. So not expecting everything to come together all at once, knowing that, pieces are being built upon pieces, and then it's all going to get to the end. We just have to be patient pretty much and not trying to rush that process, sort of trying to enjoy the journey along with it. I think being at the Central Coast as well, there is such a massive fan base, especially after the World Cup and female footballers and little ones coming through. Obviously, we're a big female team in the Central Coast, so getting that backing is making a massive difference to how we perform at home, but also when we see you guys sharing, posts and getting around us on social media, that makes a massive difference as well. But in terms of being a new club, I think the culture of Central Coast itself has made it easier for us to be patient, to not expect everything to happen straight away, and just, let it flow, I guess, like just taking one day at a time.
And correct me if I'm wrong, unfortunately you had an ACL injury a little while back. How did you find the recovery? And I guess also in the last couple of months, we've seen so many A-League women's players go down with ACL injuries. What do you think needs to be done in terms of researching and working out why this is happening, and how do we prevent it?
Yeah, great question. So I did my ACL last April, so 2022 now. I obviously with ACLs comes a whole heap of other knee injuries. A lot of people end up hurting their MCL and meniscus and just doing quite a bit of damage, because why do one thing when you can do it all, So I had last A-League season off, and then I ended up re-entering and getting match minutes with Sydney Uni in the New South Wales NPL, and then obviously gearing up again in A-League preseason, and now continuing that form as the season goes on. How do you stop it? That's the $1 million question, to be honest. So I actually just finished my physiotherapy degree, which is what I was trying to finish earlier in Canberra, which I jotted before. But just like I've looked into it, and I know there'd be a billion other physios that are looking into it as well. Some studies you look into say it's about the hip position and the angle from the hip. Other studies say that maybe male footballers have a little bit more time in the gym, and maybe that's influencing. It's literally the $1 million question, and if we could answer it, it would be the best thing ever. Last year when I did mine, at the time you're obviously thinking this is the worst thing ever, like doesn't happen to many people, like stuff like that. But once you start having a look online, there was heaps of people, even in the, English Premier League, who were doing it as well, like Leah Williamson, just a whole heap of people. Beth Mead, there was, I think, 3 or 4 in Arsenal itself. And then you look at A-League last year and this year, how many people have done it. The numbers go through the roof. It's sort of just eye-opening when you do an injury like that, because you're obviously touching base with a couple of the players that have done it before. And then once you start counting on your fingers, you realize that more than 10 people have done it who you've played with within the last year. So, and then you're obviously getting surgeon opinions, and those 10 people have gone to that surgeon. So you're like, all right, let's go. But it's just interesting because some of them happen in contact, some of them happen non-contact, and then you sort of break it down from there. So maybe the ones that happen when there's no contact, is that maybe a muscle imbalance issue? Is that a pothole in the ground? Is that maybe they're wearing new orthotics for the first time? So there's just so many factors that come into play with these things. I always say there's an ACL sniper up there, just getting us all, honestly. But it's an interesting rehab, and I think when you look back on it, you realize how far you've come. You realize how resilient as a person and as a player you do sort of turn into. I think I value gym work and prehab and sort of those little things a lot more now that I've had that whole year off. And I'm sure everyone who's been through the same boat would be, thinking back, what have I learned? Who have I become as a person type thing? So you end up pulling away from football a little bit, but then you also end up finding who you are as a person, which is quite nice at a young age as well, because when you play football all your life and then have a year off, you sort of think, who am I type thing. And there's lots of players that I've spoken to that have been through that, and then there's lots that come out the other side as well, which is really nice. But unfortunately, even the best experts don't know how to prevent it.
I think the fact that
no, you're right.
The fact that you've come through it, and it was only just over a year ago, and you're already back playing sensational football. That is a huge credit to the hard work you must have put in, and well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I was, you've got 2 options, I guess. You've either got, you feel sorry for yourself and then you just mope around, or you're just like, okay, this is it, got to get stuck in. And I think when I was doing my rehab, I just kept thinking, like, I'm going to do my rehab properly so I don't get, try and prevent as much as possible those extra niggles that come around with knees, because unfortunately, a lot of people end up coming back and then other niggles come up, or they need other surgeries with the knee just to clean up a couple things. So when I was doing my rehab, that was just my thought process, just get it done, do it properly, get back.
And is that the thought too? Because I've seen the stat, I think it's about 70% or more of women who are playing in the league are still working, as opposed to I think it's about 15%, maybe a bit less than that in the men's competition. So obviously the thought of, I need to work, I need to have my income, is that a mental battle when it comes to these things, that one injury like that can change everything, right?
Massively. And I think the thing that we don't realize, and what you touched on, is that so many female footballers work outside of football as well. So when you do a massive injury like that, you're on crutches, you can't walk. Not only do you stop playing football, you also stop working outside of any of the other, 2-3 jobs that you might have on top of football. So to have something like that impact everything in your life all at once, it's a massive sort of barrier that a lot of players have to get through. Obviously, when they're doing their rehab, they can start going back to work, but soccer is where the passion lies. So that's the main aim. But you're dead on the money. Like with the working, a lot of us finish training, head to work. It's just, I guess, it's just the way it is right now. And it's gotten a lot better in terms of obviously APL have lengthened out the season and the minimum is increasing and stuff like that. But when we do compare ourselves to where the men's are, a lot of the men's programs are full-time programs where they're at training maybe 8 or 9 o'clock. till the afternoon. Our programs are sort of either early in the morning or in the afternoon to night with time to work. So it's just an expectation that everyone has a job or is studying on the side of football as well, unfortunately.
And I guess in more positive news, New Year's Eve's coming up. Personally, it's probably my favourite game of the season. How are you feeling about such a big game on the coast? There's fireworks, we've got it all.
Yeah, no, I think the whole team is super excited. I personally haven't played a New Year's Eve game before, so I'm pumped up. I think it's awesome that they've organized the double header just to get everyone on the coast excited about, the men's obviously doing well. We're doing pretty well as well for our first season. And then the fireworks at the end, it's just going to bring everyone together. We're versing second place, so Perth Glory is second for us. So it will be a tough match, but I think we've shown previously in other games that, and especially against Melbourne City, that we can match up to other teams, and we're not going to stop fighting no matter who the opposition is.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, speaking of fireworks, DMC Conveyor, who's a massive sponsor too for the women's team, they're out there sponsoring the fireworks as well. They've got the name of the shirt, Michael Dovey, absolute legend. Big shout out to him. But
Yeah.
And just talking about preparation, Izzy Gomez and yourself, there's a bit of a form little partnership going on in the middle of the park there. Do things seem to click pretty quickly? Does it feel pretty natural playing alongside each other?
Yeah, honestly, it does. And I think the connection's definitely grown if you compare our latest match against the first match against Newcastle. But we've never played with each other. We've obviously known each other through MPL and played against each other. But I think how we play, so our styles of play are quite similar. And we know when we need to support under or when we need to make a run forward, and we've sort of got that nice flow happening at the minute, which has actually, like I said, come a long way. I wasn't expecting it to click and even click as quick as it did, but it's really nice when you're in the midfield to be able to play alongside someone who can read you and you can also read them. And then also, the midfield obviously is the center of the park. So you want to be that link between the forwards, between the wingers, between the defense. So to have that with Izzy at the moment, and it's going really well, has been really good, not only for individual performances, but also to help the team in order to defend better, in order to attack better. So it's just nice that it's coming together.
And has that been also the case because there's other players, as you mentioned, through Sydney Uni who you played with as well, and obviously having the same coach? Do you think that's really helped the momentum, probably going a little bit quicker than we all expected, that improvement, because there's just that basic fundamental shape that everyone knows about?
I think definitely. I think if you have a team where you're grabbing people from everywhere and anywhere, it is hard, and you do have to be patient to wait for, gelling to happen and the connections to build. But I think some of us do have those foundations, and we've sort of been extending it out to the players who we haven't played with before, and that has led to us coming together quicker. I wouldn't say it's a bad thing at all. I think, if anything, it's helped us, build relationships and gel as a team on and off the field, to be honest.
And so after New Year's Eve, going into January, we've got the Unite round, where every single team's going to be playing in Sydney over a weekend. What do you think that'll do for football, or even just women's football in general, given the success of the World Cup? Do we think we're going to see sort of, good crowds coming there to experience different teams?
I think definitely. I think Sydney has a massive opportunity here to sort of bring the people in. And I think it's awesome that so many of the teams are either A, from Sydney, or B, know a lot of people within Sydney. Obviously, we've got teams coming from Perth, Wellington, who a lot of our Sydney players have gone to previously as well. I think for female footballers who are young and aspiring, they will just come to the games and hopefully beg their parents to come to the games because it is local. And obviously life's about convenience. So if something's close to home and, you know, inner west is a big area and where most of the games are being played, I think it's just going to be massive for that area. But all over Sydney, if I know someone who's playing, I'm going to try go. Or, you know, if my neighbor is super excited about football, they're going to try and go. No matter their age, no matter their gender. I think we've seen a lot after the World Cup, not even, you know, young girls, we're also seeing young boys aspiring to be like Sam Kerr, Steph Catley. And it's just, it's sort of like, oh my God type thing when you see those, you know, videos and little photos that come up on social media, because you can see how far this impact is actually going. And it's not just Sydney, it's all over Australia pretty much. But the fact that it is in Sydney, I think will only accelerate how excited people are, because there's so many people within that area.
Absolutely. And I'll unfortunately have to put in my absentee note for that particular game, because I'll be on a cruise having cocktails. But look, I'll be guys, I'll be cheering from the sideline. I'll be watching on my phone. I can absolutely guarantee that. Can I just ask you too, and we said about the World Cup, and it's a good point, and I was actually talking about this with the panel earlier about, you know, the wave of energy that came from that World Cup. Do you think we've captured what we need from the World Cup moving forward? Because there was a lot of energy, there was a lot of support, a lot of people going to games that have probably never been to a game of football before, a game of women's football before. Do you think we're doing enough to capture that and take the momentum forward?
I think we did in maybe the 3 months post. I think we, you know, were on a good roll. There was lots, at the end of the day, social media is what builds everything, right? So there was lots of social media about it. There was lots everywhere. You know, you saw it in signs if you went to the shops. You saw it on buses. You saw it online if you were scrolling on your phone. And I would love to say that we've maintain that, but I feel like if you were to be honest, it has sort of gone down, if you were to chart it up on a graph. And it comes down to how much we want to continue the momentum, right? We've got the Olympics coming up for the Matildas. How good would it be if more people knew about that, you know? So obviously if you're in and around the game, you're going to know. But like you said, some people never watch football and they only went because it's a World Cup. So if we keep sort of, you know, letting people know about it, then people might become more interested. People might watch more on TV. People might come in person. And I think having that momentum for the Australian team will only build the level of A-League that we have here in Australia, because more people will want to play here and more people won't want to go overseas, and we'll be able to build up this league and then build up the fans and then get to that, you know, similar stage where the men are at, because the men are where they are because they have awesome support and it's a full-time league because the league can afford it. So it's just like if we continue the momentum and we get more people on board, then it will have a great boost. But I'm not saying we haven't done nothing. Obviously, we've got this Unite round, which is fantastic and awesome. But can we do more? Maybe a little bit. But I think, again, we got to be patient. It's not all going to happen all at once. And I think the World Cup was one step, and we just got to keep taking little steps.
I think just if every football fan has to see themselves as a bit of an advocate for it, like just talking about it in general. I mean, my son got a whole heap of books about football for Christmas, and his favorite one was the Sam Kerr one, which, you know, before the World Cup, he would have gone, oh, Marcus Rashford, that's all I want to read. Whereas now it's, oh, Sam Kerr. Yeah. And, you know, his soccer team, you know, we had an end of season catch up and the parents were talking to me about the Mariners women's team. You know, oh, they're going so well, they're coming to games. So I think it's really important for football fans to just remember that they need to be advocates for it too, and just have those conversations where you can and encourage people to come along. And I mean, New Year's Eve is the perfect example. Like, what else would you rather do than on New Year's Eve than watch some football, stick around for some fireworks, like bring them along? And it's all those little things that we can put into place.
Yeah.
100%. And I'm praying that there will be good weather, and I'm hoping there will be a big crowd. And looking forward to where else would you rather be? Exactly what Carly said. Now, Bianca, we have a bit of a thing going here on the Marty Mariner Show. A few predictions that are coming true. That Roller came on the show talking about her first goal, and then did it that weekend. Annalise and Ash were on the show, and Annalise was talking about scoring, and that happened, and they did their celebration that weekend. And then we had Sarah come on the show talking about hoping her first game would be very, very soon, and was named that weekend. Now, from memory, I think in your last game, I think there was an assist and 4 shots on target. Can we expect on New Year's Eve against second place Perth that Bianca is going to line one up from 30 yards, put it in the top corner, and the prediction? Can we name that happening right now?
I would love it. I hit the crossbar against Canberra. So it's coming, right? It's coming. And what better way to do it on New Year's Eve, right? Home game, fireworks.
Cannon.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I have been feeling like I'm building up, getting a lot more confidence in that final third. And the fact that, with all my shots, they are on target as well makes a big difference. And I'm feeling it. I'm gonna say I'll score.
Yeah, well, there we go. So get your house on it. Actually, no, Marty Mariner Show, we advertise for responsible kids, don't do it. But put a can of Coke on it that, Bianca's goal's going to happen, and it will be announced worldwide, if not just over Gosford by Carly in the which will be fantastic. Bianca, thanks so much for spending some time with us and having a bit of a chat. We wish you all the best, obviously for New Year's Eve, but for the season ahead. You guys have been absolutely fantastic, and we really appreciate you giving us some of your time today.
No worries. Thanks for having me, Marty and Carly. Really appreciate it. I'll see you guys at the game.
I'm sure we'll be there somewhere.
See you there.
And welcome back to the Marty Mariner Show, and the second of our interviews with some of our enforcers that are playing here at the club at the moment. As you can see on the screen, well, one's an enforcer, one's a sideline enforcer. I don't know if we can call them that. Dan McCamley from Coast FM 963, the 18, the best in the business. Dan, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm great, Marty. Merry Christmas to you and your followers out there. And I don't know about enforcer, but I certainly guard that sideline with a great deal of passion, mate. So
you do, mate. I've heard the stories of you pushing and shoving down there. That Paramount's not very happy with you, but we'll get to that another day, mate, because we've got a very special guest. Max Balard, the enforcer in the middle of the park, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. And Merry Christmas to you all and all the followers, and Happy New Year. Hopefully we can get a result on New Year's Eve.
Absolutely, mate. No pressure, but we better be 6 points at the end of it. I know you're only accountable for 3, but So look, before we'll talk about New Year's Eve, because obviously it's a very special night for the club. We've done now for a number of years, and it's should we say somewhat eventful on and off the field. Sometimes it's a bit of one of those games, mate. Can we just go back just to the start of the year? Because I know we chatted after grand final, all was well. There were celebrations aplenty, and that was all going really, really good. And then we started seeing some player departures. Monty left. The Asian Cup kicked off. What was the feeling in the camp there? Because obviously everyone's out there, we're going to win and stuff. But was there a bit of a loss? What's going on here?
It was a bit of a confusing time for many of us, because many of us are at the start of our career. So Monty was pretty much the only coach we've ever really had. Well, I had Stadge just before, but for some of the boys coming through the team, Monty's all they knew. So it was a bit of a change to see him depart, and also plenty of the boys that were in that grand final team that deservedly made their moves overseas, which fair play to them, and we follow them still to this day. So, but it was an interesting time for the team, and probably not the results we wanted at the start of that season, and took some time to gel and come together and work out our little partnerships here and there, and it's slowly building towards the right direction. I think we still got plenty more to improve on, but it's definitely heading in the right direction.
Absolutely.
You talk about the time it took for you guys to gel, Max, and as you said, the departure of Nick Montgomery came quite late on in the off season, and you were playing games essentially without a manager. Mark Jackson comes in, and from the start, it looked like he wanted to play that 4-3-3 formation, but maybe the team had been playing a certain way for so long. He went back to that 4-4-2. Now we're really seeing that 4-4-3 come to fruition, and you guys are really reveling in that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Monty used to play the classic 4-4-2, and just we got used to that. And Mark Jackson's come in with a bit of a change, and a good change. I think we worked on it hard during sessions. It took its time to really understand each other's roles and where we would be on the field in certain situations. But I think no matter what the formation is, and I think we might keep adapting it throughout the year, just to mess with teams and to keep them on their toes. So no, it took some time to adapt to, but I think as I said, we're slowly getting it, and there's still plenty of improvement to be made. And even you can see like the personnel that changes in the different positions and things like that. It's still adapting and still learning, and both for us and even for the coaching staff, I'm sure they've done lots of learning in this phase, and from the start of the season, they've definitely learned a lot, and as have we.
And was it tough mentally too? Because obviously we win the grand final emphatically. We have a great off season. We come back, but then mentally, it almost must have felt like, well, we did it so well last year. Look what it got us, and now we're going to make changes. Because it was that hard, like mentally, just to try and readjust all this happening.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's an interesting one because yeah, we won the league and won the grand final, and we're thinking, yeah, now we're being hunted instead of being the hunters, where we used to be the underdogs. So it's a different scenario, and I think we didn't really get used to it from the start, and we didn't really. It's not really in our nature to be the top dogs and being hunted. So it was good to, I guess, in a way, looking at the positives. I even told we even had chats after going 0-4 at the start of the season. We had chats as a team, and I told the boys we've got nothing to lose now. We're 0-4, and we're back in that underdog mindset, and we can just play the way we want to. And I think relieving some of the pressure off some of the young boys like help let them grow and flourish a little bit. Not having that pressure on their backs to have to perform as a champion, I think has helped a lot. And I think we're by keeping that underdog mindset, even though we might still be a bit hunted, it's helping us at the moment.
Max, talk us about maybe some of the similarities or the differences between Mark Jackson and Nick Montgomery. You said that Nick was, for you and a lot of the players, your first senior coach. Are there any similarities between the two? Are they completely different? Like, what do they offer that is different there?
No, they're very similar in their willingness to win. You can tell from the first session that he came in. You could tell that they had this similar mindset of playing attacking football and pressuring the opposition and trying to win the ball off the opposition in high areas. So and it's one that I really enjoy myself. So no, you could definitely see some similarities. And it was good to see Mark Jackson bringing in some of the experience from Leeds, playing what's it called under Bielsa, murder ball. We had some murder ball sessions which were pretty crazy, and some tackles went flying in, and the intensity was just up there as it was with Monty. And I think both coaches are very capable in their abilities, and they know what their strengths are. And I've seen no doubt that Mark Jackson is going to take this club very far.
Absolutely, and with the Asian Cup as well this year. I mean, obviously that was because of our result from last year. For you guys as players, and when you're training, is it very much a separate thing? Is it, this is our Asian Cup, this is what we focus on, and then we go back to the league, or is it kind of it's game after game after game for you guys?
Personally, I wouldn't know for the rest of the team, but personally, it's more it's another game, another one to win basically. And I never really understood the challenges behind playing midweek games and having to travel overseas to play these games where you're traveling 8 hours for a game to the Philippines, for example. So it's definitely a challenge, and you'd see like Melbourne City and maybe Sydney FC in the previous years do those games, and you see they'd struggle during those periods sometimes also, and you'd think, oh, well, they're playing in Asia, it's just another game. Like, what's the struggle about? But when you're coming back a day before the game, arriving, having hardly slept on the plane 8 hours, and then having to back it up with a performance a couple hours later or like the next day. It gets pretty challenging, but I can't complain. I love playing football, so every game's another opportunity to show what I can do. And yeah, I really enjoy the whole ride, and being able to perform in Asia is amazing for the club, and exposure for the rest of the world is amazing.
And you speak about performing in Asia, and that's certainly what you guys did in that competition. You qualified into the next stage. You spoke about earlier the 0-4 start to the season. Did those performances in that AFC Cup, give you guys a little bit of confidence, whereas in the league you were struggling a little bit, but you go into that Asian competition and you were banging in goals for fun and really finding ways to win?
Yeah, I guess it wasn't the smoothest run to make it out of the group stages. I think we would have much liked it a bit easier, but we got the job done in the end, and now we're on to the final stages pretty much. And yeah, no, I think by having those games in Asia, it's also given us an opportunity to further understand the tactics and each other's roles and how we play and things like that, because some of the new boys had come in and just getting used to playing with them. So by constantly being around them and playing games, competitive games against other oppositions, it was perfect for us in that journey there, for sure.
And just speaking of those new guys too, because obviously, they get signed, they come to a club that's just lifted the trophy. Here they are. We just talked about 0-4. The season's not starting as we want. Did you guys, as players who've been there, have to have a bit of a chat and say, it's okay, guys, it's not all your fault. It's all of us in there together. Was there a lot of sort of get-togetherness happening there? Because those new guys must have been wondering what was going on too.
I think that's the beauty of our team. Everyone is very welcoming, and for the new boys coming in, I think they instantly felt that they had a friend and a brother next to them. So it was pretty easy to transition for them, I guess, in some ways, but it just takes their time in a new environment and a new country. For some of them, it can be very difficult. But yeah, playing with like the likes of Angel and Doko and all the other boys that have come in, it wasn't probably too easy, especially when Monty's probably the one who signed them to start with, and then a couple of days later they're gone, and you're like, well, who signed me, pretty much, kind of thing. And so it can be a bit difficult for them, but all the boys have been really welcoming to them, and I think that's the beauty of our group. We're such a young group of boys that can help each other out in those situations, and having the experience of Vuka and other players that are more senior, and even having Simo, who's experienced some of the low times and some of the high times at the club. So no, it's been good, and I'm sure the boys that have come into the team have really appreciated the other boys that have been around them and supporting them in this journey.
Talking about player movement in and out, we spoke about how so many departed after that grand final victory. You yourself, Max, contract coming up at the end of this season. You had any thoughts about where you want to go? You've had a taste of Asian football now. Is that something that you aspire to, playing in the Asian continent, or you want to stay at home with the Mariners, or what's the go?
For me personally,
stay, by the way, mate. The answer is you want to stay, just in case.
yeah. For me personally, I'm very ambitious, and my goal's always been to play in Europe personally, and so if an opportunity does arise to go to Europe, I'd be willing to take it. But at the moment, I'm very happy at the Mariners, and I've got a year here to perform at the best as I can, and hopefully we'll see what happens. But at the moment, I can't see myself leaving this club because I just love it here, and I wouldn't want to risk it unless it was for an opportunity to go overseas.
Great answer, mate. Well done. We'll lock that one in. And speaking about movement, not so much off the field, but on it, we've seen in recent weeks your buddy Nizzy getting pushed further up the field. Did you have a word to Jacko and say, hey, mate, I can do this too, mate. You don't have to always focus on him. Did you have a bit of a word?
No, I'm letting Nizzy get the shining he deserves over there. He's a great player, and he's playing unbelievably at that 10 role, as much as he did at that 6. But I think being further up, you start to get the stats behind it as well to show. And yeah, I'm just happy for him that he's getting the recognition he deserves, because he's a top quality player. And being up there, you could see in the past few games the chances he's been creating, not only the ones that have been scored, but the others that have been created just in general have been amazing. So no matter what, as long as he's on the field and we can combine together, I'm sure there's some potential there.
If you could find him a pair of Angel Torres' shooting boots, mate, he'd be on the next plane, I reckon.
Don't worry. He's been practicing plenty of that, and I've been passing it to him to do that. So hopefully we'll see. Hopefully we can get an assist and he can get a goal. So we'll see.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
And just with that too, so does that changes things for you too? Because I know obviously Harry started last week, unfortunately got injured out of it, but what does that change for you? Because obviously that partnership in the middle of the field has been so important. What was important for us last year, previous years, it's really the basis that everything else revolves around. Does it basically, are there two roles, you take one, the other one takes the other one, and you do the same thing? Or do you have to just adjust to depend who's there?
Of course, there's a bit of an adjustment, but to be honest, we work so well, all the midfielders together, and we're a close group between me, Nizzy, Steely, Tappy, and Maxim, who's also coming in through the youth team. Now we're a big group of boys. Even DePizio could play in that 6 role, or even further up 10, more likely a 10. But yeah, all the boys have been we've been working hard together, and the coaches have made sure that we're rotating positions and understanding the roles correctly, and putting ourselves in different positions, whether it's for the press, for example. In the press, normally Nizzy would be higher if we were playing with me and him, he'd be higher. But for example, Steely took that role on against Brisbane and did superb there. Very unfortunate for him that he copped the foot injury and broke his foot in that game, but just goes to show he's able to perform at that level. And then Tappy came in after he came off, and Tappy did a great role in that 6 role as well. So I think we're all working really hard in the midfield, and we all know our roles superbly. So hopefully we can keep improving on that, and hopefully the team can keep doing well.
You talk about knowing your roles. To start the season, it seemed like the team really struggled in transition. A lot of the goals that you guys were conceding were coming in transition. You guys were on the front foot attacking and then turn the ball over, and down the other end it's going in the back of the net. When you speak about knowing your roles, is that something you guys have really worked on? Because over the last probably month or so, those goals have all dried up, and you guys seem to be doing a really good job defensively.
Yeah, for sure. The coaching staff has drilled it into us in every session pretty much, and in every game, including the Asian Cup games, where we can perfect it pretty much, because those teams tend to lay quite low in defense and then springing into attack on the transition. So we've been able to work on that quite a bit, and it's definitely something we've been working on. And what we tend to do now, what we try to do, is try and get something out of our attacks, either a shot on goal that goes out for a corner, a goal, essentially, if we can. But if we can get a corner or an action at the end of it, rather than maybe a missed pass that ends up in a transition, I feel like that's the main reasons why we've been so good at defending the transitions, because we've limited them to the amount of opportunities, and positionally we've been working on where we need to be to try and affect those kind of situations.
And I dropped in on another podcaster's prediction show this morning, and it wasn't until I started looking at the games, the fixtures this weekend, and then relating it to the table, there's some really big games this weekend, and the table's getting a bit. Are you someone who keeps casting your eye over who's playing who and where we are on the table? Can you help yourself?
I try not to too much, but at the same time, I'm a footballer, and I'm a fan of football. So you tend to look at who's playing, and I'll watch pretty much every game of the A-League that I can. If we're not playing, I'm watching pretty much. Just it helps just to see what the opponents are doing and how they're playing also. So I can see how it is at the moment, and to be fair, I think we've been 5 undefeated. So we're pretty happy about that, and hopefully we can keep that going and keep the momentum going, because I can see us climbing that ladder pretty quickly if we can get the ball rolling, continue it. Yeah.
It's pretty easy to forget because it ended up in a championship winning season, but the team started slowly last year as well. So there's a bit of experience there in starting slowly and then ramping up towards the end. But you come up against a coach this weekend who knows a few of the players pretty well, knows the squad pretty well, and Alan Stajic. They've had a slow start to the season as well, Perth. So a massive game. How important is it to take the 3 points in this one and get one over your old coach?
For sure. Especially being at home, we want to be able to put some performances on at home, because last 2 games were away and we did some great performances. But if we can keep building it at home and get the 3 points, and hopefully push them further down the ladder and us further up. That'd be amazing. Of course, Alan Sturgis's teams are always very resilient, and they'll always grind out some results. And in history, I don't think we have the best record against Perth, but hopefully this is different. And on New Year's Eve, we're always a threat, and we've had some great games over the years, and I can't wait for this one too.
Yeah, and how glad are you that the club actually has this home game on New Year's Eve? I mean, obviously you guys do a lot of travel, you miss a lot of different days, family days, birthdays, all sorts of things. But knowing you're home on a New Year's Eve, and especially now with it being a double header, it's a special night, right?
For sure, for sure. I even get goosebumps thinking about like previous years, New Year's Eve, where we've played against Jets quite a few times, I think, in those games. And yeah, from my memory, I think we've won the majority of these games, and we've put in some good performances. And being able to have a double header now is unbelievable. To have the girls play before us and then us play, and then the fireworks after that. There's nothing much better. And it's normally a great event to get the crowds from the whole coast coming down. It's a great event, and having kids being able to enjoy not only the football at hand but also the fireworks after it. I think it's a great thing for not only Central Coast but the whole community and everyone around the club. Yeah.
And a big rap for Michael Dovey and DMC Conveyor Services for putting on those fireworks. They're very much a tradition, as you said, and seeing families stick around in the stands afterwards to watch them. It's just there's no other better way to kick off a new year, that's for sure.
For sure.
Doesn't help the sideline. I trying to get comments from the players. I'll give you that. That's
it. Yeah.
Well, that's where you have to become the enforcer, mate. You have to push your way through.
I can't stop the fireworks, Marty.
Oh, well, mate, you've got powers. You've got powers. Have a chat. And just with the girls team too, Max. Obviously, they've come into the competition this year doing really well, selling into it. Em Husband's doing a fantastic job. Do you get much communication with the girls team? Do you get to do much on the same page? Because obviously they've got their season, you've got yours. You're in different places, but do you get to do much stuff together?
Unfortunately, not lately, because we've been traveling, especially to the Philippines, and then we went to Melbourne, pretty much straight to Melbourne, and didn't even come back after Melbourne. Headed straight to Brisbane. So we haven't had much time here on the coast and to be able to spend time with them. But we're following their results. All the boys are following their results. What a great result on the weekend. Great goal too. I saw that one, and so yeah, no. I think the girls are in a great place. They've got a great coach, similar to Jacko, Emma Husband. She's doing a great job there too. So really happy for the girls that they're able to do their thing, and hopefully we can have more events together. I think it's just with the travel through Asia and the A League, of course, it's just not very easy. But to be able to have double headers is great, and I can't wait for the girls to keep performing.
Yeah, double headers are great, and I think the schedule makers can probably have a little bit of a look next season and not schedule the Mariners women on a Friday night, the Mariners men on a Friday night in two different locations. I think they could probably do a little bit more to spread those out and have fans get to both of those games instead of having to pick between the two.
Agreed.
Absolutely. It was a hard decision to have to go to Western Sydney or to stay at home. It was, but we got to follow our girls where we are too. And just finally, mate, what do we need to do really well on New Year's Eve? The boys have been developing, playing well, picking up great stuff against Brisbane on what looked like a bit of a shocking field there, to be honest. But is there a particular area that you guys have said, if we've got to this is the one focus that we've got to make sure we get right on New Year's Eve?
I think we haven't really mentioned it too much about one specific aspect. We've worked on a lot, but I think if we can be clinical in the final third from the start, it'll just put their heads down straight away, and then we'll be able to see it out from there. But hopefully, we're just clinical in the final third and keep creating opportunities. That's the most important, because if we're creating opportunities, we can outscore any team, and that's how we play at the moment. So yeah, really looking forward to the game, and hopefully another clean sheet for Vuka added to the tally, and keep that going higher.
Absolutely, and around 19,000 not to fill the stadium. Make Dan's job even harder, listening to the players after the game to compete with fireworks as well. Max, thanks so much for spending a bit of time with us a couple of days out from the game. We really, really appreciate it, and all the best for New Year's Eve, hey?
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and happy New Year. Yeah.
Why not? We'll go with that. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maxie.
And welcome back to the MartyMariner Show, the last segment of what has been an absolutely legendary, I'm going to call it legendary episode to end off 2023. And if we're talking legends, well, we may as well get a couple on to have a bit of a chat, a bit of a chinwag, a bit of a conversation. The first one has travelled the world, seeing more football in this last probably 12 months than I've probably seen in my lifetime. And if frequent flyer points could buy you players, I think Messi would be at Sydney FC next year. Michelle Morris, how the hell are you doing?
I love that intro. That's so good.
Had to write it down, had to spell check and everything, but no, it's all cool.
No, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, mate. It's been wanting to get you on for a long, long time. And here is the opportunity, so it's great to have you on board, mate. And this fella, Cody Ojeda, well, look, he's a common football fan, shall we say, front page football podcast extraordinaire. Actually, check out his Common Football podcast. The first guy you interviewed, very, very interesting. Go back and check him out. Not that he had much to say. Cody, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm doing good. That first guy I interviewed for the Common Football podcast, a good-looking fella too, I reckon. Decent bloke. Got complete package, I guess you could say.
You could. Don't know if it'll be proven, but you could say that, mate.
I reckon I'm on the money here, mate. Don't worry.
Absolutely. So, so we're just going to have a bit of a chat, just have a bit of fun. And I thought I'd throw a few things at these guys to maybe just test out their powers of prediction. But the first question I want to ask, and Michelle, I'm going to ask you first. The World Cup was absolutely fantastic. I know you went to a number of games. The atmosphere was just brilliant. There was a wave of energy that came from that World Cup. Have we capitalised on that as a game, do you think, in this country?
Ooh, really hard-hitting questions to begin.
Yeah, we don't muck around on the MartyMariner Show, mate.
No, never. Look, I think we have to some degree, but not nearly enough. And I don't necessarily think that is the fault of the A-League and the powers that be. I think there's a lot that goes on around it. And I think while we definitely could, see more to it, I think it is growing. And I think, when we look at the WSL and how they've grown after the Lionesses won the Euros, I think it also began quite slow and then all of a sudden a massive boom. And I think it's growing in a really organic way, which is important, and especially important in terms of like how much money the league really has and whether or not it's sustainable to have that many people in a stadium where maybe, there's not as much staff going around. So I think we've capitalized on it as much as we can for the moment.
Yeah. And what's your thoughts, Cody? Because going to games, obviously it attracted a lot of people that weren't your week-to-week supporters. I don't even know if they follow clubs. They were just there because of the event, because of what it was. Do you think, yes, as A-Leagues, but as other fans, supporters of this game, that we've just capitalised as much as we could have?
I think it's a hard thing to judge in this moment. I think it's something you've got to kind of look back on after 24, 36 months. I don't think it's something you'll see every year. I think, Michelle, you kind of touched on it as well. There's a lot of other factors that kind of come into consideration. The biggest one being the fact that the A-League Women still isn't a professional competition. So how much can you truly invest in competition and players that still have to work a second job to sustain themselves? There's a lot of issues that still need rectifying in the A-League Women's before we truly see its potential. But I don't think, even in the short term, I don't think you can deny that there is some form of impact. There's definitely more people that are willing to go out to A-League Women's games. I think, Marty, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this season's the first time you've gone to A-League Women's games. Obviously, a big reason for that being there's now finally A-League Women's games back in your hometown. But even then, I've taken mates to their first League Women's games that they haven't been to before. There's a certain level of impact. I don't think we'll see things on the grand scheme of things that you saw in the USA or England, at least in the short term. But there's definitely potential to go even further. But in terms of where we are now, I don't think we could have asked for much more without there being some serious overhaul in other areas. So, look, for the short term, I'm kind of pleased, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough too. And I think too, Michelle, and I'll come back to you. I think the main thing is we don't shoot ourselves in the foot with this, because there is opportunity. And as both of you have said, there will be continuing opportunities that have come out of this. For example, but one, though, that is something that we've got to change, and I saw Cody on the night, the Mariners had their men's and women's teams playing exactly the same, well, pretty much exactly the same time. One was in Western Sydney, one was on the coast. And I mean, for a fan base that's not the biggest anyway, to sort of split people that go either way, do you think there's anything, Michelle, just on a smaller level that you think we could do just to, help continue just this? I just feel there's this wave of energy that came from the World Cup, and I just think we're doing bits, but there's just little bits that we could do more. Is there anything you think of? You go to a number of games you think we could do to help out?
Yeah, I mean, I have definitely faced that problem before. I missed the men's Sydney derby when it was played in Parramatta because I was like, I'd rather go watch the Sydney girls play in Canberra. I love doing that away trip, so I'm always going to take that road trip over anything really. And especially, if I can support the women's team, I'm going to go support the women's team. That's my number one priority at this point. So yeah, I completely understand the struggle and how frustrating that it is, especially when it's an interstate game, when it's in the same state. Like, you should be able to watch both teams. And if we want to create away fans for not just the men's game, but also the women's game, like the league needs to be working with the clubs to make sure that, there aren't these sorts of clashes. If it's like a fixture that's like the other side of the country or in another state or whatever, different story. I understand, like, we can't all, sort that out. But like, I think this is where a lot of the issues come from when it comes down to stadium availability, just in terms of general like fixturing. Like, there are these issues, and I think this is what these FRG groups are doing with the APL to try and sort out issues like this, like making sure that there aren't these clashes anymore. And I think even with Unite round, it's a very frustrating situation for Adelaide fans who are going to have the women's game playing at Leichhardt Oval the same day as the men's team playing in Sydney. Your team, your club, both teams are in the same city at the same time, and they couldn't put them on different days. Like, it's really small things like that, so silly, that the league really needs to, be a bit more mindful of.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with that. And Cody, are you a fan of the double headers? Because I've been to a couple now, and the gap between the games seems to be enormous, which I get it if there's telecast things and also. But are you a fan of the double header to keep the club together on the same date if it's logistically possible?
Honestly, in theory, yes. In practicality, no. I've been to one this season, the Wanderers and the Wellington Phoenix. I love the fact that it was both clubs playing back-to-back as well. I think that does help, especially if that way you don't have one set of fans kind of coming in and out, which to me is probably a little bit frustrating for more than just a few people. But I got to that game, I was excited. I got through the men's game, which, look, the heat didn't help that day. It was stinking hot, and getting through the first game was a struggle. By the time the second game started, I was buggered, and it was a hard watch to kind of get through, especially considering that game, that whole day kind of took a while to take off. I was sitting through a 0-0 draw for 90 minutes and then a 0-0 draw for about 60 of the women's game. So, look, my only experience is probably affected by other factors that are outside of just the general doubleheaders control, but it is hard to kind of get through kind of two games back to back in the stands. And especially if you are a supporter of a club and you want to be kind of active in it. If you're doing it for 180 minutes, I'm not sure if you've had that experience yet, Michelle, but I'm sure it's not the easiest thing in the world. Look, there are probably advantages to it. I don't think it's something that you can do constantly throughout a season, like every 3 or 4 weeks. If you're going to do it, it'd need to be a one-off during a season, and you'd want to hope that it's both clubs playing the same in both games.
Yeah. And I mean, and as I said, I totally understand there's a gap between the games too, and you got one team finishing up and the others moving on, and you want to keep that gap as short as possible to keep the people there, to keep everyone entertained. You don't want to be waiting an hour before the games, stuff like that. But yeah, I'm totally with you. I think in principle, They sound great. Men's, women's. We got the New Year's Eve event happening here on Sunday, and it's a traditional thing for the club. So to have the women playing as well, it's going to be a long night, but it's going to be one that's certainly going to be certainly be an event. All right, let's get to a few predictions then, just to switch a little bit. Michelle, the Melbourne City. Last time I checked, I think they've won that last game. I think I was just watching the end of it. I don't think they came back from there, but they're on top of the competition at the moment. Without trying to throw in your Sydney bias as much as you possibly can, but who will be the two teams in the grand final this year, and who'll come away with the trophy?
Oh God, that's so hard to say. It feels too early to say because Sydney still has 2 games in hand, mind you. We did go to Uzbekistan, they're still, playing around getting together, lots of injuries.
Being recorded, mate. It's not like anyone's going to go back and have a look at it. It's like,
I don't know. Melbourne City is obviously doing very well. It's hard to say like that they won't be in the grand final just with the form that they're in, just with the way that they're playing. Like they won 5-3 against Brisbane just this afternoon. Like it's a pretty hefty scoreline. I think they've only lost 1 or 2 games this season, so they're very good. So it's hard to go past City to be in the grand final. Unfortunately I do think City will be there. Who the other team is, I don't know. It's so hard to say. It's very tight at the moment. I think a lot of people want Wellington to be there, which fair enough. Like it's a bit of a fairy tale story, that one. But for the sake of me being me, I'm going to say Sydney FC, and then Sydney FC wins everything again.
Absolutely. And I would expect nothing less. In fact, I would imposter pretending to Michelle if you didn't say that. What about yourself, Cody? Who are the Mariners going to play in the grand final?
Don't think they're playing anyone in the grand final this year. Sorry, mate. No, look, honestly, I wouldn't take the Mariners out of the equation for finals. There's a lot of teams though that I think are going to push for the 6, and a couple of surprise packages that'll end up being in the 6 that I don't think have the experience to say the squad depth to then be able to push on in that kind of postseason format and be able to challenge for a grand final spot, and especially to win it. Perth and Wellington been fantastic so far this season. I don't know if either of them, when push comes to shove, if they'll be able to exert themselves in maybe not a one-off game, because I do believe they'll have the 2-legged semi-finals at one stage of the season. I could be wrong. I do know the finals format will be a 6-team competition though, but that's when your cities, your victories and your Sydney FCs, they've been in that pressure before. They've been in those games before. That's where those teams step up. That's their bread and butter, basically, as much as Sydney FC, sorry to bring up these painful memories for you, Michelle, as much as Sydney FC have maybe struggled a little bit in those grand final situations before last season, they're a team that's been there every single year. They know what those games mean. They know what they need to do to win those games, especially now, beating Western United 4-0 last year. I think it'll be Melbourne City and Sydney FC. I do partly say that because I want it to be Melbourne City and Sydney FC. It'll be it's the most exciting potential matchup that you can have. Two very attacking sides, 2 sides that on their day are genuinely the best teams in the competition. Sydney FC, like Michelle said, they do have games in hand, and the ladder doesn't really do them justice at the moment. We still haven't seen Courtney Vine at full fitness besides round 1, and round 1 she was still very, very good, and even the last round I thought she was very good. Once she gets that kind of clinical aspect back in her game, Sydney FC are going to be virtually unstoppable. So Sydney FC will rise up. I don't know if they'll necessarily finish in the top 2. I think Melbourne City do go on and win the league, but eventually Sydney FC and Melbourne City grand final. Who wins it though is a very, very tough one. I think whoever wins it could even go to extra time. As long as there's more than 3 goals in that game, I'll be happy. I think that's my prediction.
That's a long time to be sitting on the fence, mate, but that's okay. That's okay.
You know what? Just for the sake of argument, I'll say Sydney FC wins.
Got to keep Michelle happy. I understand that. That's totally fine. Even the wall's blue behind her.
You don't want to make Michelle mad. Trust me.
Absolutely. We don't want to be doing that. Look, it's been a massive 2023 in regards to football. We mentioned the World Cup. Obviously, we've had finals, grand finals, and a whole heap of big games, and it's really, really hard to figure out or just to say one memorable moment. But is there a memorable moment that will stick with you that will just identify the year for you when you look back and go, that was the one? Michelle, probably a tough one for you. Maybe not, because I did see someone's story this afternoon that just kind of state what they thought. But for you, memorable moment for 2023.
Well, it has to be the grand final, doesn't it? The Sydney FC win. But more specifically within that is Princess Abini scoring the penalty to seal the win. It was at 3-0 at this point, but jumping over the fence and running into the cove and jumping into the crowd. Like, for those of you who don't know, probably many people don't know this, but I have been saying for ages to my friends, I was like, oh man, I really want that moment where, like, you know, when a player scores in front of the active and then they jump into the crowd. I really want that, but like in the women's game. I've always wanted to see that. And I've never said this to the players. Why am I going to say this to the players? Run to the crowd, come run to me. And when Princess Abini did that, it was like the most fairy tale moment for me. Like, I know everyone, like, for me personally, it was just the most perfect way to end the season. So Princess Abini jumping into the crowd, celebrating with the Cove, my number one moment of the year.
Love it. What about yourself, Cody?
I'm going to say two. The first one's going to tie on the back of Michelle's. My it's a little bit of a piss take one, but being in the media box at that game and seeing Princess Abini score that penalty, run to the crowd, and then spotting someone at the front of the active kind of jump the barricade to jump on Princess Abini, and looking to the guy next to me and going, is that Michelle Morris that just jumped across over the fence? So I was in full view of that, and I was genuinely laughing. I think I sent you a message at that time as well, going, was that you that just jumped over the fence? Mind you, I'd love to have the reputation that I can jump over the fence at a football match and not get myself thrown out.
Oh,
but
mate, I'd love the ability to be able to jump over a fence. Don't worry about it.
I had so many people being like, where's your band? You should be banned.
No, you shouldn't. It's fun.
Deduct 6 points.
Strip him of the grand final. Ruin that moment for Michelle. No. Look, honestly, I don't think anything can genuinely beat being in the stands for that penalty shootout against France. As much as it was a 0-0 game, but the tension, the emotion going into that match, it kind of felt like everything that I had done in football in my life had built up to that moment. Being in a different city, being around people that I'd kind of only just met, celebrating with, I won't even say random people, because some of them I have been able to form at least somewhat of a friendship with as well since then, but just like-minded people, and seeing some people that I know have invested so much into the women's game as well. Michelle, I'm sure you could speak on Fatima, who was genuinely in tears in front of me once that game finished, once the penalty shootout had won, but just the pure ecstasy and emotion once Courtney Vine scored a penalty. I don't even remember how I reacted in the 10 seconds after, because it is genuinely just such a blur.
Yeah.
But that moment in itself, it's the cliche one. It's obviously the cliche answer, but it's like even just getting calls from people that know that I was in Brisbane. It's like, oh my God, we won. What's it like in the stadium? And I was ignoring them because I wanted to stay in the moment. It's just, there's so much of that day. It really was beautiful. And I don't know if the best thing about something like that is I don't know if I'll actually experience something like that again. So I'd try to take it in and savor it as much as possible.
Yeah,
Don't forget the after party, Cody.
Oh yeah, the night of the Caxton was even better.
What a night.
I'll tell you what, as much as that plays that shit music, it was a good night.
We rate these shows PG, guys. You know, keep that on your own channels. This is a family channel. Keep those stories out. That's the X-rated version later on, or something like that. We'll come back to that one.
We're going to say that. That's the post game chat, Marty.
It's the post game chat, which I'll probably record as well. All right. So it's been a massive year. Let's just switch over to the men's competition, and a question. And Cody, I'm going to come to you first this time. We've had a few changes of coaches in the men's competition this year. Will there be another coach that won't see out this season?
Am I allowed to say Ross Aloisi, or are we past that?
We're past that, man.
Look, in all honesty, it speaks to kind of the state of the A-League, where I don't know if many clubs have the financial ability to just simply let go of a coach and sack them because they're underperforming. And even the ones that are languishing towards the bottom, I don't know if I see any of them parting ways, because they do feel like being part of a bit of a longer term project. I don't think Perth are going to make any reactionary calls about Alan Stajic. John Aloisi, I think he's embedded himself in Western United too much that they'll let their start of the season determine how they kind of see his outlook. And the only other one that I think was under any pressure was Mark Jackson, and he's starting to slowly turn the ship as well. I don't know if Mariners will have enough in him to make finals now, especially with, we were talking off air before, Michael Tullio now leaving. Sorry to bring that up again, Marty, but
thanks, mate. Yeah, hurry up with your
I don't I don't know if I see anyone parting ways between now and the end of the season. I think the only way you'd see it is if a coach genuinely gets a better offer and leaves on their own terms. I don't know, Marco Rudin, I know there was talk about him possibly going to Japan. If that comes to fruition, then maybe, but I don't think anyone's getting the sack or anything like that.
Fair enough. Michelle, are you on that same page?
Yeah, I don't think just yet. I think, yeah, like Cody said, I think John Aloisi's kind of cemented himself there, and they're putting a lot of faith into him. But I do wonder as well how long that faith will last. But if anything happens, it won't be probably until the end of the season, or it'll be like a Steve Corica situation where it won't be until he loses 3 games in a row at the start of the season. But I think for now, everyone's job is pretty safe.
Yeah, I think you're probably right now. It's a tough part of the year, and I'm sure everyone will come back firing in the new year as well. Well, we asked the question in the Liberty A-League. Let's do the same for the men's competition as well. Cody, who are going to be the 2 teams in the grand final this year, and who will win?
You know what? This is almost harder to pick than the women's because there's no one really standing out to me so far this season. If there was one bold call I had before the start of the season, one thing that I did say was whoever finishes as the premier, I don't actually think will make the grand final. Such is the nature and the tightness of the competition this season. I wouldn't be surprised if Wellington Phoenix come out on top this season and then don't make the grand final. If I had to pick, I'd probably say Melbourne Victory and Wanderers. And honestly, I know, Michelle, you're probably going to hate me for this. I actually think Wanderers might win it.
Wow. That's that. I'm glad there was silence there because that's what that needed. It's
probably an unpopular pick, especially at this stage, but it's one that I can see happening.
Yeah, absolutely. What about yourself, Michelle?
I wholeheartedly disagree. I don't think Wanderers will make the grand final, much less win it. And I say that as a Sydney FC fan who can very much see that my team is placed in 10th position in a 12-team comp. So there's no chance that Sydney will make the grand final, much less win it. But unfortunately, I do think that Melbourne Victory will probably play in the grand final. Whether or not they win, I don't know. I think people might say otherwise, but I think there's a fairly decent shout for MacArthur. I think they play some really decent football and they get results when they need to. So, they may be irrelevant as a club, but they have really good players, really good coaching staff, and I think at the end of the day, that's really what matters.
No, absolutely. And any club that has cowbells, I mean, let's get real. And just while we're talking about atmosphere, and Michelle, I did mention at the start you've been overseas and went to see you're an Arsenal fan. We've got to sort that shit out too. But was there the travel overseas? Obviously, 1,000 memorable moments. But was there anything in particular that will just stay with you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There was a lot. I think, watching Socceroos play at Wembley Stadium against England, sold out Wembley, was absolutely unreal. Watching, my favorite team, like my favorite English team, Arsenal, play at the Emirates, the women's team. So I'm watching 2 Australian players on the field. Kyra was on the bench. One former Sydney FC player in Caitlin Ford. Like, that was unreal. I was there wearing my Caitlin Ford Arsenal shirt. It was something else. I had my Australian flag up. I was seeing her and I was waving at her and I was yelling at her, Sydney forever. And she just was like, yeah, thumbs up, and like, oh, who's this weirdo? But yeah, I think that will watching Arsenal at the Emirates, Arsenal girls at the Emirates, was unreal.
Yeah, No, well, as I said, low expectations, I guess, when it comes to Arsenal, but that's okay. Coming from a Tottenham fan, I can say what I want. It's my channel. Let's just cover back. So just the final question, Cody, and I'm going to come to you first. Men's comp, women's comp, World Cup, take them all into consideration. One thing you never thought you'd be saying now that happened this year.
Oh, this is a tough one.
You started.
I'll start with maybe seeing MacArthur hit the 4,000 for a regular league game. I guess that might be something I didn't know I'd see this year, but that's probably more taking the piss. I do respect what MacArthur are doing over there.
Apologies to all my MacArthur fans out there.
Honestly, I actually do love the fan base. They may be small, but there's a lot of good people in there trying to do a lot of good work. So you know what? Shout out to them. But I'd say, you know, as much as there was a build up to it, and as much as I did buy the tickets for it last year, just genuinely seeing my country at a World Cup in my own country, as much like there was a build up to it. I did plan it from midway last year that it was going to happen, but to be in the moment, to actually experience it firsthand, is still so surreal. And I guess to see my country of heritage as well win the World Cup in the country that is me and that I call home. It's so many beautiful things from that period that will stay with me forever.
That was certainly a fantastic thing. And Michelle, something that you can say now that has surprised you most about this whole year. You never thought you'd say it.
Oh, I guess that I was lucky enough to not just work at the World Cup, but to interview some of the top players in women's football, in world football.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
It was unreal.
It would have been. I'd have had nothing. I'd have just looked at them with a microphone and gone, say something, because I would have just total stage fright. It would have been just crazy. Just forget that.
I got to interview World Cup winners. You know, that's
exactly.
Yeah. Again, just something that I never thought I would ever do in my life, and here we are today.
Absolutely. Well, if you'd have told me that the Mariners would have won a grand final 6-1 in Sydney against Melbourne City, I probably would have gone, you're an idiot. And if you'd have told me that I'd be sitting there at a World Cup final watching England play, regardless of who was going to play, but sitting in a World Cup final, that would have been, I would have been like, yeah, that's crazy too. But it's just been a year full of memories. I think honestly, it's been a fantastic year for the game. I just really hope we take that ball and run with it seriously. I think that'll be to cap it all off. Michelle, Cody, thanks so much for joining me on our last show of the year. Happy New Year to both of you. I'm sure it will be a ripper. Cody, where can we find you on the 1,000 different socials that you do?
It's funny, actually. You mentioned the Common Football Van before. I've actually dropped that title a little bit, so it's kind of a bit of mini rebrand, I guess. Just more trying to centralize everything I do. I fortunately had half my work under that name, half my work being my FPF work under my genuine name. So just trying to centralize everything a little bit and see what direction that kind of takes me, I guess. But yeah, Cody Ojeda _ on Instagram, Cody J Ojeda on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Cody Ojeda _ on TikTok as well. I've actually got a little something on a Mariners play that I'm trying to put together for you, Marty. So hopefully you enjoy that. But yeah, I think that's the three main ones, I guess. And then the Common Football Podcast, which I do plan to get back up and running in 2024. So stay tuned, I guess.
Well worth a listen. And Michelle, where can we find you these days?
Mostly on Instagram, Michelle Morris TV, or on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Michelle A. Morris. Yeah, hanging around there.
And any Sydney FC women's game, of course.
And every Sydney FC women's game. I'll be in Wellington, doing Wellington away this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That'd be exciting. Wow, that will be really cool. That's on my bucket list, actually, to get over to Wellington to see a game. I've never done it, so that's definitely on the list as well. Guys, thanks again for joining me. It's been a lot of fun. We will definitely catch up again soon. And have a happy new year, both of you.
Appreciate the invite, man, and glad to have a chat, a chinwag, and a conversation. Is that how it goes?
That's what's written on the t-shirt.
Love it, mate. Love it.
Take care, guys. And that brings us to the end of the final episode for 2023. What a bumper episode it has been. I just want to take the opportunity to thank every single player, every single committee member, staff member, the bosses, the big bosses, other fans, other supporters who have jumped on without hesitation, most of the time, just to make a phone call, send a few messages, and it's like, yep, we're on. People love talking about this club, and we couldn't have a channel if it wasn't for all of you. Thank you so much. Special shout out to Will Makepeace, who does the work behind the scenes with the club. So much organisation, such a massive job that he does, and the support that he gives us in going through for players and to get these things sorted. So a massive shout out to Will. We really, really appreciate what you do, mate. Don't forget, if you haven't done so already, you can subscribe to the channel through YouTube. Building Numbers there does something about an algorithm which lets people know that there's a Central Coast Mariners channel out there. We have a number of podcasts, YouTube channels, through Instagram, all sorts of stuff, different people doing different things, all for love of the Central Coast Mariners. Make sure you support them all. Everyone's doing their little bit to help promote the club, and we're all in this together, and we all have one yellow and blue dream, and that is our Mariners continuing on as well, definitely as they have been of late. Looking forward to bringing some brand new episodes to you come the end of January next year. I'll be having a little bit of a break. Look forward to New Year's Eve. Hopefully we'll see you all there. If you see us, come and say good day, and look forward to having a bit of a chat, bit of a chinwag, bit of a conversation with you then. If we don't, we'll see you in the new year. Go the Mariners. Let's get 6 points against Perth. Wouldn't that be a great finish to the year? Let's get it done. And talking about getting it done, it is. It's been the MartyMariner Show.